Michelle Banks are the parents of Mr. Desmond Thomas, who's the deceased in this case. So let me go ahead and turn it over to State's Attorney Aisha Braveboy. She will address this case, and I know a number of you have questions about another case, so let's go ahead and do this one first, and then we'll take questions on that one afterwards. State's Attorney Braveboy.
Thank you. And thank you all for being here. This case is heartbreaking, not only because we lost an amazing young man, but because he was the son of a Prince George's County police detective and the son of a retired postal worker. He has a very tight-knit family who was in court every single day supporting his memory. Many of them are with us today, and you'll meet a few in just a few moments. Desmond Thomas was Officer Donnell Thomas's son. It is particularly painful for Detective Thomas because his job every day is to protect and serve our community. To have his son become a victim of the crime and violence that he has spent years fighting is unimaginable. I watched his father in court every single day. I watched his mother in court. And I knew that at times it was difficult for them, but they will never stop being his parents. And they continued to represent him through that process, and they will represent him here today. Together, his family and this community has suffered a tremendous loss because of this very senseless murder. Desmond was also a father. He's also a father. So he's leaving behind people who relied on him for their care and support. And so this is a true tragedy. But I am pleased to say that our office has secured a conviction against one of those charged in his murder, 54-year-old Kenneth Smith. Mr. Smith was found guilty by a jury on first-degree murder and first-degree attempted murder against the surviving suspect and on use of a firearm during the commission of a crime of violence, and he will be held accountable. This murder should not have happened. It's a tragedy that was further compounded by the fact that Mr. Thomas's own children witnessed the murder. There was no credible reason for Mr. Smith's own children witnessed the murder. So let me just say that again. It was a tragedy that was further compounded by the fact that Mr. Smith's own children witnessed the murder. There was no credible reason for Mr. Smith to take the actions that he did that day. Though he testified in his own defense, he was not believable. And the jury found such, finding him guilty of the most serious charges filed against him. I want to thank Assistant State's Attorney Bill Porter for putting together an excellent case, along with Victim Witness Coordinator Leona Banks Ward, who compassionately supported the Thomas family and worked diligently in reviewing discovery material that was used in this case. We now look ahead to the trial of Mr. Smith's co-defendant, Lamont Scott, who is scheduled for trial next month. We will do everything in our power to hold him accountable as well. Again, thank you to the family for believing in us. Thank you to my prosecutors and my victim witness team for doing an excellent job in this case, as they do in every case. Now, to give you a little bit more context on how this case unfolded, I want Bill Porter, who prosecuted the case, to come forward, and then you will hear from the family.
Thank you, Ms. Braveboy. Very briefly, this is a sad and tragic case. We had two individuals who were 30 years old. One was a federal law enforcement officer, and the other one was a police officer's son. They got together right before the federal law enforcement officer was supposed to go to work, and they wanted to play a game of basketball. And they went to play basketball in a park down in Fort Washington, but they did not know that right next to them on the swings were two 14-year-old girls who were just sitting and eating and having fun after school. And one of the little girl's father saw that her locator on her phone went dead, and he went to the park and he saw the two 30-year-olds sitting right next to the 14-year-olds because the basketball court was right next to the swings, and these guys were just playing basketball. He says something to the two 30-year-olds because he thinks that his 14-year-old daughter is with the 30-year-olds, and they did not know each other. Well, after he said what he did to the 30-year-olds, he and his son ambushed them, and they were dead within seconds. And they pulled out a gun and they shot Desmond Thomas twice, one in the chest and one in his abdomen. And then as he lay dying, Kenneth Smith came around and he stabbed him in the back. And a medical examiner said that all three wounds were fatal wounds. But these two men, they just went to play a game of basketball. And instead of Kenneth Smith stopping and just asking his daughter what was going on and taking his daughters home, they killed two innocent men. And the tragedy is not only did we have a federal law enforcement officer who was shot, the bullet went into his arm, almost hit his heart, and he could have been dead too. But he killed a police officer's son. But the tragedy is that he went there for his daughter. His life is now gone himself. He's 54 years old, and he's facing 2 life sentences, one for the murder of Desmond Thomas and another one for the attempted murder of that federal law enforcement officer. Hopefully one day we will learn that instead of acting with guns, we will put those guns down and start talking and handling things a different way. Thank you all for the time. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we will hear from Detective Donnell Thomas.
Good morning. First of all, I want to say thank you to my extended family, the Prince George's County Police Department, and also the Prince George's County State's Attorney's Office. Both of those entities have been great throughout this whole process. Approximately 8 months ago, my firstborn son, Desmond, was taken from me in a completely senseless, tragic, and avoidable act of violence. It never should have happened. But Desmond will live on through his son, my grandson, Makai, and our family is strong, and we will heal. Again, I want to say thank you to everyone involved in helping us and supporting us getting through this process. That's all I have to say.
Next, we will hear from Desmond's mother, Tichelle Barnes.
Good morning, everyone. I just wanted to say that I'm very happy with the actual verdict. I want to thank Ms. Braveboy and all her fantastic team in helping get him arrested. I miss my son terribly. It's happy that the verdict was guilty, but I'm still devastated that my son is gone. But I want him to know that we all love him and that we will never, ever forget him. Thank you.
Next, you know, Desmond grew up in a law enforcement family. Not only is his father a detective for the Prince George's County Police Department, but his uncle-in-law is also a member of law enforcement and is the chief of the Mount Rainier Police Department. And at this time, Chief Olster.
Thank you for being here. We stand before you with heavy hearts. The recent verdict brings a measure of comfort and justice to our family. It was a senseless act that took the life of Desmond, my wife's nephew, from us. As both a father and a law enforcement officer, this tragedy strikes deep. Our families, like many others, are not immune from senseless acts of violence. Desmond was a bright light in our lives, dedicated to his family, committed to justice. His loss is an indescribable pain that we'll carry with us forever. We're grateful for the jury and their diligence, and to the State's Attorney Braveboy staff for their unwavering commitment to seeking justice to the victims in Prince George's County. The verdict is a step towards healing, not just for our family, but for all those who have suffered at the hands of violence. Thank you, Assistant State's Attorney Bill Porter, for your tireless efforts and your team to bring forth truth to the jurors. Thank you for the Prince George's County Homicide Unit for your work in this case. In memory of Desmond and in honor of all those who have lost their lives to violence, we will persist. We will hold up hope, and we will strive to turn our pain into purpose. Thank you.
So thank you all again. This is, while we are very pleased with the verdict in this case, our hearts are still broken. And when we're used to dealing with officers when they are investigating cases, when they are our witnesses, screening cases with them, but it is very unusual that we have a case in which the family that we're serving is the family of an officer. And so, it was a heavy weight that we bared, that we will continue to bear as we seek justice a second time in this terrible tragedy. But we are confident that we can get justice a second time. And we're now available for any questions that you might have with respect to this case.
This is a picture of Desmond's son.
Yes.
How is he doing and how old is he?
And he's coping.
And this all just started because somebody just assumed the worst because he was sitting next to a teenage girl?
That's what the evidence bared out. And it really wasn't sitting next to a girl. It was that the girls were playing on the swing set, and the two men in this case were playing basketball. So they were going to have a little bit of fun, as we would hope everyone in our community does. Enjoy the park, enjoy being out, get some exercise. So they were doing things that were absolutely normal for anyone in our community.
Was it clear what the men spoke to Desmond and his friend, or just they came and instigated some argument? That's the understanding.
Well, what I can tell you is that there was information brought out by the surviving victim, which I will ask Bill Porter to speak to. But just understand that there was nothing that was done by the by the victims that would warrant this type of reaction. So.
Yeah, the two victims weren't doing anything. They were just playing basketball. The tragedy is that the basketball court was right next to the swing set. They did not know each other, and when the father came, the father started cursing and accusing the men of being there with the girls, and the two victims were basically saying to the father, "We don't know them, and we were just here to play basketball." And that's when the son opened up the door and started shooting.
And that's the evidence that really bared out even from the girls who were there. They did not know these men. They weren't interacting with them at all.
You've seen some cases where like the motives were, I don't know if silly is the right word, but like, just what do you make of something that would happen just because of that?
It's hard to describe because, life is so precious that, you know, it's just hard to even think of what could have been said that could have led to this. If a father is worried or upset that his daughter happens to be at a park, I believe he didn't know where she was, so he went searching for her. You come upon a situation, your first instinct shouldn't be to not only accuse people, but to be armed and then to use those weapons against two people who you don't know. If everyone's saying, look, we don't know them, then you should accept that as fact. I don't know why he decided to commit these actions that day. I don't know if we'll ever know because, of course, he's has defended himself and he took the stand. He lied constantly on the stand. I want to let you all know that. The jury saw right through him. He lied several times, and he was impeached several times through skillful cross-examination and through evidence that we had to the contrary of what he was saying. So this is someone who did not act as a father on that day. He did not act as a father while he was on trial, and he won't be in a position to father these children. And that's sad for everyone. But he made choices, and he has to pay for those choices.
You mentioned that he lied. Is there any specific examples of things?
You want to talk about it?
After the murder, he immediately drove his car home, put it in the backyard, and he started cleaning up blood out of the car. His son started taking bullets and shell casings out of the car, and they destroyed all of the evidence, even the knife that he used to commit the murder. And and his daughters told us that he was cleaning up blood, but he stated on the stand that it wasn't blood, it was dog feces that he stepped in the yard. And because of our witness coordinator, she listened to a jail call where he was bragging that they hid and got rid of some of the evidence. And when he was confronted with those statements, he just kept making contradictory statements about everything.
Okay.
Any further questions?
On this. The sentencing will be in September. We'll send around the exact date for that sentence. The other trial.
July the 8th.
So the trial against the co-defendant is July 8th.
Give us 2 seconds.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
No more questions about this? Okay.
Thank you.